Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Lestini, Projects Director at Sparkbox, and I'm happy to be talking about MVP and scope creep for our UnConference today. So, scope creep is sometimes referred to as kitchen sink syndrome, and we will review why in our presentation today. I'm sure you've heard that expression, everything but the kitchen sink, which alludes to throwing in just as much as possible. This mentality, which very much does exist in project work, can pose a significant challenge during project development. It typically starts with minor adjustments and revisions that over time can significantly deviate from the project's original design and intent. When constructing a product or starting a project, many teams adopt MVP as a straightforward functional version that addresses consumer needs. Rob has gone over this, but to summarize, MVP enables teams to gather valuable customer feedback with minimal effort, aiding in the refinement of the application. While this iterative process is essential for perfecting the product, it also poses significant risks of falling into the scope creep trap or diverting attention from the project's primary focus. But on the other hand, a firm review of MVP with the client team can also allow for some scope growth, which is really not necessarily a bad thing. If properly controlled, it doesn't have to derail a project and can even lead to a better outcome than was envisioned in the discovery or onboarding phase of the project when we simply didn't know everything. Welcoming scope changes in the context of these guardrails of MVP can make your team more nimble, helping them smoothly integrate adjustments and apply effective project and task management techniques to stay on point. Remember, change is inevitable and client and product needs will evolve over time, and delivering a project that answers to these needs often means a constant review of the scope. If client and project teams can keep an awareness of building towards MVP, scope adjustments actually can be a positive thing. But on the other hand, flip side of the coin, and more often found, is that scope creep, sometimes referred to as gold plating, is a big risk that can overwhelm project teams. Remember, MVP is a version that includes only the essential features necessary to meet the initial needs and gather feedbacks for future development. But to expand on that previous slide, we should also assume that MVP is our starting point. It allows for the evolution of future versions of the product. And also, constraints on the project are not a bad thing because you simply cannot do everything at once. As noted, new ideas will surface and needs will naturally change as the project evolves. It's very normal to limit scope and to rule things out. It doesn't mean that the things that we contain now can't be addressed in the future, but MVP allows for barriers to be put into place to allow for a successful release of a product version. In projects, there will always be the need to keep in mind scope, time, and cost of an iteration for a successful business to market release. And the role of the project manager is to sometimes say no and to sometimes say not yet. Our role is to work with client teams to understand the ask or these iterative asks as they occur and to work through the right now essential features with the time and resources that are in place for the work. Future phases of the project can contain new ideas, which is why a healthy project backlog and backlog refinement are essential. To show this another way, the minimum is not about being halfway done or providing the bare minimum. It's about delivering a few high quality features with minimal effort. A viable product is one that can fulfill its intended purpose. Developing a product with minimal features and effort allows for rapid assessment of assumptions, ideas, opportunities, and risks. User feedback is key in this process. The diagram at the bottom of the slide is showing the approach relating to just some features, usually done poorly, and the top is showing the slice all the way through all the core features done well, also known as vertical slicing. So the idea is to build a thin slice across these areas instead of a layer at a time. And let's go over scope as well. Project scope and project management refers to the detailed definition of the work that needs to be performed in a project. The project scope serves as a foundation for making decisions, setting expectations, and managing the project throughout its life cycle. Some key components of project scope are objectives, deliverables, milestones, deadlines, what is included, what is excluded, and understanding and documenting the expectations of key stakeholders. A well-defined product scope provides a baseline for robust project planning, execution, monitoring, and control. It helps prevent misunderstandings and scope creep and ensures that all stakeholders have a shared understanding of what the project is going to deliver. So is it really scope creep? Sometimes that's hard to see. The key difference between scope creep and natural iteration lies in the origin and control of the changes. Scope creep involves uncontrolled and unauthorized changes or additions to the project scope, often without proper evaluation or approval. In contrast, natural iteration is a planned and controlled process where adjustments are made within the predefined scope, typically in response to feedback, such as user testing, that are part of the planned iterative development cycle. Key characteristics of scope creep include unauthorized changes where new elements or requirements are introduced into the project without proper approval from relevant stakeholders or without a formal change control process. And again, that incremental expansion, it often happens gradually with those small changes, which may seem minor on their own, but collectively can significantly impact a project. And this has an impact on resources, the additional time, the budget, or personnel, which were not additionally accounted for in the project plan. And most importantly, quality compromise. Rushed efforts to accommodate scope changes may compromise the quality of deliverables, as the project team may not have sufficient time or resources to adequately meet these new requirements. So why does scope creep tend to happen in projects? Because honestly, it's like a planning party. Everybody gets in there. But really, it can happen for various reasons, and understanding these factors can help project managers proactively address and mitigate them. 3 good examples of why it can happen: incomplete initial requirements. Projects may start with incomplete or unclear requirements, making it a challenge to define the scope accurately from the very beginning. Stakeholders may not understand their needs comprehensively or overlook certain requirements during the initial planning phase. A strong project plan is key here. Changing stakeholder expectations, because stakeholder expectations may evolve over time due to shifts in business priorities, market conditions, or external factors, leading to requests for additional features or changes. And as noted, those small incremental changes that individually seem insignificant can accumulate over time, leading to a pretty significant expansion of project scope. So how can focusing on MVP provide this crucial balance between growth and iteration and creep? We have to be agile, and I say that with a capital A. MVP provides the balance to learnings that happen as the project team iterates through phases in an agile way of working. Agile project management as a framework puts the emphasis on flexibility, collaboration, and iterative development. Focusing on MVP in an agile approach can help address scope creep and balance natural learnings in several ways. But at the heart of all of this is straightforward and effective internal and external communication. This is the main responsibility of the project manager. But the key difference between creep and natural iteration lies in the origin and control of the changes and the prioritization of the features. In product development culture, there's a tendency to obsess over individual features, and this emphasis often overlooks the importance of the entire product and its context, particularly in its viability. In order to optimize limited resources and time, it may be necessary to prioritize fewer features, but execute them exceptionally well. That is why quality always has to be at the forefront of our work. So how can focusing on MVP provide the essential balance? I've identified 8 ways here. 1, clear prioritization. MVP forces teams to prioritize features and functionalities based on essential requirements, helping prevent unnecessary additions and scope creep. This clear prioritization ensures that the team focuses on delivering the most crucial elements first. Incremental development. Agile practices, including MVP development, emphasize incremental progress. Each iteration, each phase, naturally builds upon the previous one, allowing for controlled changes and adjustments based on natural learnings without introducing extensive scope changes all at once. Early user feedback. MVP involves releasing a basic version of the product early to gather user feedback. This feedback loop helps identify necessary adjustments and refinements based on actual user experiences, reducing the likelihood of late-stage scope changes. Continuous refinement. Agile methodologies embrace the concept of continuous improvement. Focusing on MVP allows for ongoing refinement of the product in response to changing requirements or insights gained during the development process. Prevent scope creep. Regular stakeholder involvement. Agile encourages regular collaboration with stakeholders, ensuring that their expectations align with the project as it evolves. This ongoing engagement helps manage expectations and avoid surprises that could lead to scope creep. Defined iteration cycles. Agile frameworks like Scrum have well-defined iteration cycles, sprints usually. Each sprint results in a product increment, providing opportunities for continuous feedback and adjustment while preventing unchecked scope changes. An emphasis on minimalism. By definition, MVP emphasizes delivering the minimum necessary features to meet user needs. This minimalist approach helps contain the scope and discourages unnecessary additions or features that could lead to scope creep. And finally, robust change management. Agile methodologies incorporate change management processes that allow for the controlled evaluation and incorporation of scope changes. This helps prevent unapproved changes and ensures that alterations are properly documented and assessed. So in summary, client and project teams can achieve optimal project outcomes by integrating Agile principles with a focus on MVP, striking that balance between delivering a robust product, embracing adaptability, and preventing scope creep. It's a very strategic approach that gathers user feedback and uses it for guidance of future work, and it fosters a project where continuous improvement and efficient project scope management are key. So thanks for your time today, and I look forward to answering any questions or feedback.